Okay, I'll go back. I'll go back. Do you want me to go back or no? Don't worry, I'll
No,
never.
I think that's okay. I think that's
Okay.
okay. We'll start for now.
Okay, so given where the group that we're with today, Sheboot, you're at the earlier stages of growing your business. But at the end of the day, it's all about, the road ahead of you is about growing your businesses, and that means change. The reality is, statistically, this is a fact, 70% of strategic change fails, and that's a big number and it's a big scary number. But it is just a fact. And it actually aligns with the success rate of startups. So for every 10 startups, 30 will survive, one will explode. So it's interesting how that connection between the failure rate of change and the success rate of startups is actually the same similar metric. And so it's really important to understand that and say, okay, what can I do proactively to not be in the 70% failure club? What can I do in that way? So, I point you to three articles that I like to, not articles, some of them are like really extensive papers that are available on my website. You can take a look at 80/20 CS, but there's a ton of academic, industry, and think tank data around this failure rate. So today is all about giving you some tools to get ahead of that and make some choices for your organization. The goal is not to solve any specific problem fully. That's not the goal for today. It's about awareness of what it takes to succeed at the change your businesses are going to require as you succeed at growth. And as you approach scale, it's going to put operational pressure on your business. And so how can you think about that in a pragmatic way so it's not overwhelming and you can tactically, take the steps that you need to solve it. So we have a big agenda today and we have started a little bit late. So I'm going to put my timer on just to keep us on track and jump right into it. So there will be breakouts as we go along the path here. And the idea of the breakouts is to give you opportunity to think about your business in the context of what you're learning and capture some notes to go along after we leave the session today and keep on flushing them out. If I think we've only got individuals on this call, but if we did have colleagues that you wanted to bring in, you could certainly work with them offline. But what we'll do is we're just going to mute everybody for the workout sessions, give you those 10-minute breakout sessions to work on your own and then come back. All right, so to start, I want to give you an overview of the 80/20 CS blueprint, which is again the heart of the book that I've authored, and it's what's made me successful navigating change on behalf of the companies that I've worked for, as well as myself over the years. And I was able to come up with a framework for that. And then the book is all about 7 or 8 lived case studies that give really tangible examples of that process of operationalizing change. And so let's just break it down. So there's a lot on the screen here, but it's important for me to go through it with you. When you're thinking about scaling your business and the decisions you're going to have to make that are going to have a long-term impact on the success or failure of your efforts, it really gets broken down into 2 phases of managing change. The first phase is macro strategy, which is planning, right? So what is a strategic thing that you want your business to achieve? What is the ask of your business? It is a very strategic North Star. And why does that thing need to happen? Like, what's the real reason behind that? And part 2 of the macro strategy is what's the goal? So if you do this thing that you believe is so important to your business, what is the expected return on that thing? And next, related to that in gate 2 is who is going to lead the effort to make that happen, right? So that's phase 1, that's strategic. It then transitions to phase 2. It's an intentional handoff to middle management, which, depending on how big your company is and how many people you have, might be you still, but it's that transition to middle management to say the people that are actually going to do the work, are they bought into this? What is their perspective on how this could actually be achievable in day-to-day operations, right? So this transition between gate 2 and gate 3 is respecting the people that do the work every day and not speaking down to them and telling them, but listening and collaborating up. So there's that connection between leadership and the day-to-day operations of the business. Supporting phase 1 and phase 2 is a scoring model, right? And so 80-20 CS stands for, the 80-20 is a Pareto principle, so 80-20 rule, where I absolutely believe focusing on the 20% of the great things that you're doing and amplifying them, and the 20% of bad things that are negatively affecting your business, mitigating those things. The C stands for core. So at the bottom, core is an acronym within an acronym. What is your confidence level in the ask? What is your confidence level in the goal? You know, how open is everybody involved to what you're trying to achieve? What's the level of resiliency in your team? When you hit walls, what is their ability to bounce back? And is everybody at the table to do the work? So there's a method of scoring that, which we'll have we'll touch on a brief exercise of that in the workshop today. But essentially, when you score where you're at, anything under 75% is a risk. You need to mitigate it. Anything between 75 and 85% needs to be tweaked, and anything 85% or higher needs to be amplified. And so literally that's a gut check on a scale of 0 to 100%, where people feel they are at each stage of whatever thing it is that you're tackling. So that's the blueprint at a high level. I won't go into it because we're going to break it out. But what I'd like you to do now is I want everybody to put their thinking hat on specific to your business. Okay. So I'd like each of you, when you're thinking about your businesses, is there an opportunity that you believe you need to capture in 2024? Or is there a problem that you believe you need to solve in 2024 that supports your company's strategic plan? Okay, and that caveat's really important, because an opportunity to capture or a problem to solve that doesn't benefit your strategic plan shouldn't be a topic of conversation. Like, it's just, that's a nice idea, that's great, but what's the connection? So I'd like to give you all 1 minute, and it should be something that's pretty top of mind, but I'll put the timer on, a minute to just capture what that opportunity is, or what that problem is that you believe is critical for you to solve in 2024. I'm on mute. Sorry, does everybody hear me now? Okay, great. So we've got some interactive polling happening here, and if everybody's willing to participate, even though we're a small group, it would be terrific. So if you grab your phone and scan the QR code, the question to kick us off is, so as I mentioned, your opportunity or problem that you have selected to focus on for this workshop. And I said, you know, is it supporting the strategic plan? So my question is it budgeted for 2024? Have you allocated hard dollars or time? Doesn't have to be cash, it could be time. Okay. So, great. So this is something to think about, okay? So if there's a problem that you believe is critical enough that it is the heart of this workshop where you want to break it down, and it could be that it's new, and that's why it isn't in the 2024 budget yet, but it's important. If you don't have hard cash behind this thing that you want, opportunity you want to capture, or this problem you want to solve, then that's something that might need to shift. You need to either be allocating time or hard dollars to address it. Otherwise, it doesn't raise to the level of importance. Okay, great. Okay, let's go back to the deck. So let's start at gate one. So again, everything we're doing today, you're thinking about that opportunity capture or that problem that you want to solve. And it starts with the ask. What is it that you're asking the business to do? Now, depending on the size of your business, and maybe I could just take a moment because we are a small group. What if you're willing to disclose this? I'm not sure if that's appropriate or not, but revenue levels. Are we sub a million, sub five,
Oh yeah, sub 5 for us.
sub five? Okay.
No, sorry, 500,000, not 5
Okay.
million. Just
Okay.
letting.
Yep.
Okay.
Sub
Same.
million for us.
Million?
Less.
Less than a million. Okay. Okay, great. So there's really buckets of what the strategic drivers are. At your stage, revenue growth, customer acquisition is pretty huge. As you scale, though, and this is years later for you, things like your EBITDA performance in the software world is really key if you're looking towards an exit event. M&A integrations trigger a need for change. I think budget changes are a big impact for companies at your scale. If you don't have the budget, what can you do with less? If your budget envelope is not growing the way that you would like it to be. Market expansion and position as well. Is the market adopting your product as quickly as you would like it to be adopted? What is the quality where it needs to be? What's your time to market when releasing new products? Is your customer experience where it needs to be? So there's a variety of things that drive change as you're growing. And if you can identify what those drivers are, that's where it starts. And then this is important. You need to then be able to pitch competently, which you all have because you're part of the Shibu cohort. So you've all been successful to date at conveying your value. But it's really important to be able to say, look, I need to do something different in order to manage the growth that I see coming. And here's why. So there's a really big difference between knowing that you need to change in some way to capture an opportunity or to solve a problem and being able to articulate it. So I know you're all familiar with the elevator pitch because you have succeeded in terms of your position with Sheboot today. But I want you to take a moment to think about what your elevator pitch is in context to the problem you want to solve or the opportunity you want to capture. So again, an elevator pitch, it's your short window to convince somebody to keep listening to you. So relevant to your problem or opportunity, what is it that you want your investors or your company leadership to support? And why? Why must it happen? So as an example, let's say I've got a new product, an innovative product that I've designed. I want to get it out to the market really quickly so that I can spawn some excitement and generate top of the funnel growth because that's what I need. I need to grow my pipeline. So my elevator pitch may be, in fact, with my window over here, I want to establish a SWAT team to rapidly release an innovative product that we've designed in a way that our customers and new prospects will accept. The product, we're going to announce it to market within 10 days to proactively kickstart growth of our sales pipeline, right? And what I'm asking the investors or the company to do is to approve a very small bonus plan so that I can incent my development team to produce a quality product with urgency and ensure that we meet the deadline. And why do I need this to happen? Because if we don't create new energy in the marketplace in the short term, we're going to risk pipeline stagnating. We're not going to have enough top of the funnel activity to meet our sales plan because we know based on historical conversion rates, we're not where we need to be today. Okay, so all the skills that you've established for your business to get to where you are today are the same skills you need to be able to communicate the value proposition of why something needs to be different. Okay, so what I would like you to do is take 10 minutes to think through that opportunity that you've defined and created or you've identified, and or the problem that you've identified that you're dealing with today. What is your elevator pitch that you believe might address that opportunity capture or problem? What are you asking for? What do you believe the mediation is for that problem, or the approach is to capture that opportunity? And if you don't do it, what's the impact? So why must this thing happen? Okay, so the chat is open. I'm going to start the timer. And if you have any questions, please put it into the chat just so everybody has quiet time to work. And what I'll do is, I think everybody's muted, so I don't need to mute all. So please enter the chat if you have any questions. Thanks. Just generally for everyone, is this exercise clear in terms of the connection to the opportunity or problem that you identified at the beginning? Okay. Okay.
I think everybody's looking like they're done. I think here, Susan, is that
Okay.
right? Yeah.
That sounds great. I don't want to rush it, but absolutely sounds good. Okay, so let's go back to the Menti meter, and I'll put my camera back on here. So I'm curious about how clear your thinking was in completing gate 1. And we can have a bit of a discussion here if everyone would like to, or if you're comfortable to. And so, when we think about completing that elevator pitch and the ask and the why, were you very clear? Was it easy for you to come up with that ask and the implications of not doing that thing, solving that problem, or capturing that opportunity? So go ahead and have your votes, but please, Payal.
Yeah. So I wouldn't know whether I was clear and I was on the right path until I share what I've written with you, if that's okay.
Yeah,
And
sounds
then
great.
you can advise if if it's on the right path.
Sure.
Okay. So I kind of used your slide format that you had as an example.
Yes.
And so for my elevator pitch pertaining particularly to the opportunity and growth, which for us is to continue our sales and marketing effort and be the dominant player in the target segment.
Yes.
So I said that your GPS has grown 400% year over year since launch in May 2022, leading to over $500,000 in lifetime revenue. We will focus on sales and marketing to become the dominant player in the small business market in Canada, offering our fleet monitoring solution. From the elevator pitch.
Yep.
Then the next was our ask. So our ask to the investors: invest in our seed round to propel this growth, which will help us achieve $1 million in sales in 2024. And then the risk, we said, if we do not invest in our growth strategy, there is a risk of reduced funnel to meet our sales target.
Okay, that's great. I think all of it is great. I think the elevator pitch focus on sales and marketing needs more specificity. It doesn't, not a metric, but like what aspect of sales and marketing? Like we will, is it a resource investment?
Right.
Is it an SEO spend?
Yes.
What is the more specific thing that you are including in that pitch? Other than that, I think then you're saying that your seed round of money would tie to that more specified thing that you call out in the pitch.
Right.
Then your piece around pipeline, the impact on pipeline if you don't do it makes total sense. But I think the elevator pitch has to be a bit more specific.
Okay, I think that's fair, because we do get asked this question that, okay, 70% you're investing in sales and marketing, what exactly? So
Correct.
I think that's good. Yeah.
And we're not at all at the point of getting at the measurable objective yet. So it's not about numbers, but it is about clarity on where it's going. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
My pleasure. Karen, Rana, anything on your end?
I can read you what I wrote
Sure.
and you can tell me whether it works. Okay.
Absolutely.
So we have a software solution for contact centers. So we will establish relationships with leading contact center as a solution platforms in order to build direct integrations into their platforms for seamless data flow. By reducing manual data entry, the platform will be more attractive to potential customers and will enhance the value of the partner platform as well. So our ask is to approve budget to build and support membership fees for these integrations and the costs of the development work. And by not building these relationships, we remain more of a standalone solution with significant manual data entry that will reduce the appeal to end users.
That's great. The specificity is there. It's great. I don't have any feedback there at all. Rana?
Mine's not as clear, so I still want to work on mine a bit, if that's okay.
Sounds great. Absolutely. I just wanted to give you the opportunity. Okay, so 100% of the team here today was somewhat comfortable, which is great. I think it's again the exercise of putting these ideas that you have into concrete language, right? Distilling it into statements really gives you that a checkpoint to say, am I clear? Is it premature for me to go and say I'm going to do this thing? Is it premature to bring it to my board? Is it premature, or am I ready to go? Okay, so we're just scratching the surface. We're going to peel even deeper here, but you can see the value of being very pragmatic about how you go through these things. Okay. Fantastic. So let's move on to the goal. Okay, and this is where we are going to get a little bit more measurable, but at the high macro strategic level. So, so what, who cares? You've all developed your pitch, your ask, and here's the impact of why you should, what will happen if you don't do it? Well, let's say you do it. What's the ROI? That's really what we're getting at here, is what is the ROI? So you've got to articulate the value that you're going to deliver if you do this thing based on an approval of the ask. And that is measurable at a strategic level. Okay. So when we think about ROI, we are talking about dollars. And Karen, you said it. I think you both said it, Payal as well. around your top of the funnel, being very, very clear about that. I think the dollar metrics is where what comes in now from a goal point of view. Karen, you had some numbers in mind in your pitch of the value that this would be able to create. So let's just move down into the goal. So the goal is a measurable outcome that you're targeting as the result of your efforts. In the context of the blueprint, it's strategic, it's C-level, it's the founders, it's the board, it's not functional. Okay, so a goal is strategic, an objective is functional. And so there's a distinction between the two, and it's very, very important that you keep the meaning of those two words separate. The goal is a return on investment, and the who is if you're going to your investors and your board and you're saying, I want to spend this much of my seed money on this particular thing, who is going to be doing the work to make sure it's successful carries more weight than the plan itself or the data you've put behind that plan. They need to trust that the person who's going to execute is actually capable of doing it. So in terms of our example that I've given of a product company, any product company that's going to innovate and rapidly release a new product to market to drive market excitement, build top of the funnel, the goal I've set in that example is that within 6 months, we will generate enough new pipeline opportunity that our pipeline value, pipeline value, will be at minimum 2 times what our target is for the year. So if our revenue target for the year is $1 million, then in 6 months, if you approve this bonus to incent my team to develop a new product and we hit the release date, I know that I can leverage that in my marketing campaign to 2x my top line revenue target in the pipeline. That's the measurable goal that I'm going to put on this ask. And then I, as a sponsor of this opportunity capture or sponsor of this problem, I am RACI A for the success or failure. Is everyone familiar with RACI? No? Okay, let me just review that really quickly. So RACI is the responsibility and accountability matrix, where the R stands for who is responsible for something. The A is who is accountable, and accountability is the top level of accountability for success or failure. C stands for who do you need to consult in doing something, and I is who do you need to inform that something is going to be done. So at the highest level in gate 2, we're still in strategic planning. Whoever the sponsor is of a thing, and in all of your cases as founders of early stage companies, you are RACI A at the strategic level. And in addition, you might have members of your team that will be functionally, when we get to execution strategy, that are functionally RACI A. Okay, so the next exercise, and let me just pause for a second there. And any questions on goal and who? Okay, straightforward. Okay, great.
Susan, when you say RACI A, you mean accountable, right?
Accountable, correct. Thanks, Julia.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. So no questions? Great. So I'm going to start the timer again, but I think I'll just monitor everybody, and when you're done, put your hand up, and we'll just move on to the next piece. So the goal for you now is to take your 10 minutes or less related to the problem or opportunity. And I'm going to pause and digress for a second. If you could just raise your hand, how many are focusing on problems, and who's focusing on an opportunity capture? So I'll say opportunity first. Hands up. All opportunity. Okay, I can change my talk track and not say the word problem again, since we're all focusing on opportunities. That's great. So you're going to take your opportunity. You've done your gate 1, your elevator pitch, your ask, and your why. What is the measurable goal specific to that opportunity that you have defined? And beyond yourself, you are the RACI A from a goal perspective. If there's anybody else that you believe is equally RACI A, or maybe it's not you for your opportunity, who is that? And is there anybody functionally, the day-to-day doer, that you think is a RACI A in order to achieve that opportunity? Okay, so I'll just keep an eye on all of you, and when I see Karen, Payal, and Rana, when I see your hands go up, we'll keep going. No pressure. The full 10 minutes have been allotted.
Could you kindly go back to your previous slide so I could see the format the way you wrote it? Okay, perfect. I like that example. Thank you.
Okay, great. And if everyone doesn't mind any Q&A during the breakout time, just please speak up, throw any ideas out there. Let's just have a conversation. We are a small group.
Susan,
Yes.
in case of the who, so for example, in our case, actually your goal and what we are planning to choose is pretty much the same, more top line funnel.
Yeah.
But the who would be, yes, RACA would be me, but we would also be hiring BDRs and specialists. So not the SWAT team per se, but these would be the core,
Right.
members. So do we specify that, the 3 BDRs?
No, that's coming up when we get down to execution.
Okay.
So really at the goal level, we're talking about who is accountable for the success or failure of this at the strategic level, right?
Okay.
So no. Good question.
Okay.
That's a great question.
Thank you.
And that separation between, we're going to talk about this when we get to gate 5, that separation of thought between, the tactical execution and the strategic commitments that you're making is really important. They're connected. They're not isolated, but you really do need to think through them in a paced way, without muddying the water. Because to your point, Payal, you need those BDRs for the day-to-day calling and outreach and emailing and follow-up and that tactical stuff. And that needs to be done really well. But clarity of thinking as to why you're doing it and what you're committing to, and who's going to be leading those people and creating the strategic narrative, right? That's the difference between making sure you're thinking through it in a more phased way.
Thank you.
Okay, it's a little bit of slowing down before you speed up, because when you mesh it all together and you just run hard, you can end up with a messier situation at the end. Hi, Karen.
I have another question.
Sure.
In terms of accountability for RACA, is it better to have one person as accountable? Like when you start having multiple people being accountable, then it muddies it a bit, maybe? I don't know.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed. There's an awful old school saying called "one throat to choke."
Yes.
I don't think it's politically correct anymore, but it's true, right? And people should embrace accountability because it then forces you to actually perform.
Well, I'm thinking, because then there could be finger pointing. Well, you were accountable
Right.
too. Like there's nowhere, no one person could claim that you're the one responsible. Okay.
And I'll talk about this a little bit later. There is, though, RACA does not just exist at the strategic layer, right? RACA also can exist at the functional layer. And depending how big your initiative is, you could have multiple RACAs that own a piece of something, but that's still one throat to choke on that piece of it. So great question. Okay, so is everyone still working or still working? Okay, great. No, you're good? Okay, great.
Good.
Good, okay. Rana, no rush. We have 2.5 minutes left, but when you're ready, just you can pop your hand up. Thank you. So while Rana's working, Payal and Karen, if you would like to share your goals, we can talk through that. You can also hold it if you want.
Yeah, I can share mine.
Great.
So it's very similar to that because just tying it back to the opportunity, if we were not to get the investment for the purpose of this discussion, we anticipate making $600,000 in revenue this year. If we were to get the investment, we anticipate our forecast is 1.2 million. So it's pretty much 2x the top line, which is mentioned.
Okay. So
So
you're saying if you do get the investment, then you would be comfortable committing to $1.2 million in top line revenue.
yes,
Okay.
in the next 12 months versus 6 months.
Okay. And just for clarity, when I say on this line, the pipeline is 2x, what I mean is
The
that
funnel,
the funnel, right? Not the revenue.
right?
Okay. So in software, which I know that's your business, ideally, if you could get 3x pipeline, then you've got a healthy, robust pipeline. And even if deals slip, you're making your number quarter over quarter. To me,
Right.
2x is a conservative number in terms of a goal. But I just wanted to make sure we were talking about the same thing there in terms of pipeline growth versus revenue.
Right. I was referring to revenue, but I like that that marker too, so we can keep that in mind
That's
from
great.
pipeline perspective.
It's huge because you don't want to be in a situation where you have to have every single deal close on a quarterly basis.
Yeah.
Because that's all you've got. You're like 1.2x target for that
Yeah.
quarter. That is huge pressure and risk.
Right.
Okay. Hey, Karen?
Yeah, so our goal was to generate 3 new partnerships in 2024 that will triple our current client base. And that I would be the RACA for the success or failure of that.
Awesome. That's great. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm just going to move us back to Mentimeter. I would like to get your input on, I'm always curious about this. So is this a new learning opportunity for you in terms of the use of goal in a strategic versus tactical context, right? And I mentioned earlier, some people use goal and objectives interchangeably, and they're not the same thing. By definition, a goal is strategic, and it typically takes longer to achieve, and an objective is tactical. So I'm interested in your input on that in terms of within your businesses. Is that word goal used in strategic and tactical contexts? Okay. So this is important. So in terms of common language and clarity of meaning, I would just, encourage everybody to get some discipline around the use of the word goal versus objective.
Yeah.
Okay.
And which one are you saying is which? Because I would use them interchangeably.
Yeah. So a goal is strategic and takes longer. Okay. So if you're going to double your revenue, that's a goal. Your objective is going to be to engage in the market and touch 50 new target partners per quarter to create that pipeline of revenue opportunities, right? So one is more on the ground, it's closer to the ground, Julia, than the other.
Yeah, I guess as long as your language is clear within your company too, I guess
Sure.
We always use strategic objectives within our company.
Absolutely. As long as there's distinction. So that's a good point. As long as there's distinction in language, but one should not be used in both contexts is the point. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And then one more checkpoint, and this is just looking back at the work that you've done so far on gate 1 and gate 2. What's your confidence and would you buy into? So if you were a neutral third party that you were proposing this opportunity to, and you want to get support for it, whether it's going back to your board, what's your confidence level? I mentioned before on the scoring model, anything under 75% is not ready for proposing to anyone. 75 to 80, maybe you need to strengthen the positioning a bit, and you're absolutely confident. So based on what you've done so far in this workshop, how would you, if you were playing a neutral third party other than yourself, emotionally attached to your business, how would you score yourself in terms of buying into what you've done so far? Okay, that's great. So this is good. The whole point of this workshop is just to explore areas of thinking pragmatically through progress, through change. And so I think, opportunity to look at things a little bit differently and say, okay, I've got to do more homework. I'm going to say this again a few times as we go through this. It's like slowing down in order to really be successful faster, right? It's all about progress. And sometimes you can run too hard and too fast and miss some of the little nuances that if you just do a little bit more work, you're going to set yourself up to be stronger in the long run. Great. Okay, so I had put in a short 10-minute break at this point, but I want to survey everybody if we just keep going, just keep motoring. Yep, okay. Okay, and I think if anybody would like to take a short break, just speak up and let me know, and we can just pause for a few minutes, okay? Great. Terrific. All right, so let's talk about strategy, and this is execution strategy. So you'll notice the circles in the middle, and I didn't spend a lot of time talking about this at the beginning, but operationalizing change encompasses change management. Change management is really important and it's complex, but it's actually tactical. It's the how you make a change take place within your organization. So when we talk about gate 3 and strategy, it's that transition from macro strategy at the leadership level to day-to-day operational execution strategy that you really need to lean upon your middle management as you grow to do. So it's how are we going to implement the things that we've already decided on? This is not a challenge for all of you today, but as you grow, it will be. If it's complex, do you need program management? Today, I think project management is quite relevant, right? How are you assigning the different roles to the different members of the team? So it's very clear who's doing what and when. So I think project management is very relevant to your stage of growth. As you grow, and even today, for some of you, policies and processes and procedures, controls and compliance might be relevant today based on industry regulations, any kind of industry compliance rules that you have to consider. But these are like the tactics, and I'm not oversimplifying it. I'm just saying there's A plus B equals C. What are those things that you need to put together in a more tactical sense? So gate 3 is really important, as I mentioned before, because it's about setting boundaries for the path ahead, right? What will you do and what won't you do? What is going to support this thing, this opportunity you want to capture to advance? And anything that doesn't support that opportunity to advance, you need not to be doing it. It's noise. It could be wasted time, wasted dollars. So it's really about focus. So execution strategy, it's specific, but it precedes objectives measurement, like so that the more tactical time-bound measurement, and it flows from the strategy that we just reviewed together. So when we talk about the beginning of phase 2 strategy, we're going to be focusing on what will your time and attention and investment in the opportunity that you want to capture, what will it affect in your business? Payal, how is it going to affect your time? Do you need to carve out 20% of what you have been doing to shift to what you need to do if you get approval for this money? Karen, for you, how is it affecting your time? How is it affecting your web presence? There's many different aspects of what will change. Where will the change occur, right? So as you scale, you might have an opportunity capture in a new geographical region. So it might be limited to that, for example. And when will it happen? Is it something that is imminent? Is it something that you're going to go into a design phase for 3 months and it's really not going to actually occur until 6 months from now? So being very clear about all of those things allows you to maybe not feel overwhelmed because you're actually intentionally planning for these things to happen. Okay, so just a little bit of just a grounding again in terms of where we're at. Gate 1 was about the ask, 30,000 foot level, right? Strategic, high level. Your goal brings it down a notch. You're saying that if you let me do this, if you support me to do this, I'm going to deliver this to you. So we're bringing it down to the ground a little bit more. Strategy, we're going closer to the ground. This is how I'm going to go about making this happen. This is my strategy for realizing the goal to ensure that I deliver the ask that you have approved. And then we'll get down to objectives. But this is where the transition will be happening. Again, as you scale, and I'll keep saying that because today, most of this is going to fall on all of you. But as you scale and you add members of the team to your business, you do need to learn to let go and trust those people that you're bringing in. I see smiles. You do need to learn to let go and trust people that you're bringing in to take some of the burden from you, to collaborate on strategy, but then trust them, empower them to go and execute on that strategy. Okay, great. So I'll go through the definition and examples, and then I'll pause and we can have a bit of a discussion before we do the breakout. So I think it's important for me to just, once again, just reiterate, top down does not work. It's not fair to your employees as you're scaling when it's their job to show up every day and do the work, not to listen to their perspective on the best way for that work to get done. Now, again, that's not as much of a factor for you at this stage, but it will increasingly be. There's a natural thing that happens when you bring people to the table to collaborate around execution strategy. When they contribute and they see you incorporating their perspective that you buy into, you have to agree that it's the right perspective. They see you incorporating that into the plan, they take natural ownership of it. And they take natural pride in doing the work and delivering results. So this gate 3, this transitionary stage is critical. If we go back to the very beginning of the workshop, we talked about 70% of change failing. More than anything, the reason for that, it's not the plan on paper. It's the people who don't buy into it. It's a lack of alignment. and it's maybe a lack of commitment, a lack of not being empowered and autonomous. So it's really important that you start to bring, the middle management or individual contributors. Payal, in your description around bringing BDRs in, when you go through that hiring process and you've got the checks that are like, this person's a great fit for my business. Well, incorporate what motivated you to hire them into the plan of execution. Like, they may have some really great ideas based on their experience in the same marketplace. So it's really just about listening, and knowing that you're the expert in your product, but everybody has expertise to give to make the business better and stronger. Okay. So these are very high level examples, but as just to kind of dig into this a bit more. So again, the example at the beginning, new product to market, we're gonna pay them a small bonus to drive some behavior around urgency, making sure quality is still the same, so that we can announce to the market that a product's coming, get the market pumped about it, drive pipeline. That's great. Our goal is that we're going to double our funnel within 6 months. Great. What's your strategy, your execution strategy? Well, the SWAT team is going to be dedicated, effective immediately. And whatever's on their plate today, we're going to transition it to other resources. Right? We are going to establish weekly productivity targets, and we're going to produce reports that we're going to review weekly. And any indication of productivity decline will be reviewed for correction. Okay, so nothing here is time bound. Nothing here is numerical, right? But this is how I'm going to behave in order to ensure that I hit my goal of being ready with a new product by the release date. Okay, questions? Pretty straightforward. Okay. Yeah.
So, in this case, so you mentioned that no measurable targets are mentioned here. It's generic, right? So, for example, if I'm just going to tie it back in my case, I would say, instead of saying we're going to hire 3 BDRs, we would say hiring sales team,
Yeah,
for growing the funnel. That would be one of the bullet.
And so we're going to get to objective. So I think it's fine to say 3 BDRs. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because when we're talking numerics, when we get to objectives for the BDRs, it's going to be the 3 BDRs will do this by this date, or their targets will be X, for example. But you could use the number here for BDRs. It doesn't matter. So your strategy is, we will acquire X number of business development resources that will be focused on pipeline development.
Yeah.
Yeah, the number doesn't matter here.
Yeah. And then we talk about reporting in this case as well. So their targets, to your point, comes later, but we can just mention that they are measured on sales closed and funnel development, like it'd be a weighted average on a monthly basis, for example.
That's it. Exactly. And when you get to objectives, and you get even more specific on what those things are. But you said a really key point there, that they're going to be measured on pipeline and close rate, right? So that you are driving behavior that is top of the funnel, as well as falling out of the bottom of the funnel and closing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Also, geography, would be in your example, Payal, is there a geographical focus for your business that you would want to focus the BDRs on? That's relevant. That would be part of your strategic statement as well.
Right. Yes. So for example, in our case, it would be nationwide, but we want to go vertical focus. So then I think that would come in here, that instead of diluting our efforts, let's go with what's our sweet spot today, and then hone in into that.
That's it. Exactly.
Okay.
So all of those major tenets of execution strategy, right, without the quarterly, annual numerical objectives, the targets, That's exactly spot on. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure. Karen, Rana, any questions? Nope. Okay, great. So let's move on to the what, where, and when. Okay. So what will be affected by your strategy? So in the case of the example I've given, all members of the SWAT team will be dedicated to the production of the new product so that we don't miss that release date. So that SWAT team will 100% be affected, the people, but also the stuff that they were working on will be affected, but that's it. Where will it be implemented? Well, again, it's a new product release. So we want to release that product in the same markets that the current catalog is sold in today. Right? So we're going back to the same market that we are in today. And when the engagement starts immediately with a deadline of releasing the product by the date that we've set. So again, these are very high level examples, but I'm being very specific in terms of the what, where, and when. Okay, so this one, because I'm across 2 slides, I'd be happy to leave it on the strategy, if that makes sense. I don't know which slide you would like me to leave it on. Any opinions? Or leave it here? You're on mute, Pale.
Sorry, I would prefer the examples, but I'm open to what the others have to say. Yeah, this one, actually.
Okay, and just let me know if you want me to move it to the second tile. I'll start the timer. I'm going to leave it at 8 minutes, so maybe we'll be good by then, and give me a wave if you're ready to go. Okay. I am not going to keep staring at you while you're working. So when you are good to go, just if you could just say I'm ready. And when I hear 3 of those, then we'll if the time doesn't run out, but there's still 5.5 minutes left. 2.5 minutes.
think I'm done.
Okay, great.
This one is a little bit tricky. You start getting deeper and then you bring yourself outside and then you wonder, is it too high level?
So what if you're willing to share, let's talk through it. Okay.
Okay. So in terms of, what will be affected by the strategy in terms of that? So what I wrote was, we will hire 3 BDRs, 1 digital marketing specialist for lead generation via targeted outreach and online channels.
So keep going. Keep
Okay.
going.
I just have 2 more points on that section, subsection. And then I will dedicate 40% of my time in building industry partnership to continue the efforts of sales pipeline and lead generation. And then all performance will be metric driven and will be reviewed internally by me on a weekly basis and presented to investors on a monthly basis.
Okay, keep going.
And then where will it be implemented? So I said, we will launch a nationwide omni-channel campaign targeting 2 key verticals: home services, which includes electric and plumbing, and construction, mainly landscaping. And we will start hiring process by mid-March, followed by a month of training to achieve our sales target, expected to be achieved in the next 12 months post funding.
That's great. That's great, Payal. At the beginning there, I think that second point you made around 40% of your time shifting,
Yeah.
to me is almost like the starting point, right? And how is that different from how your time is allocated today? So where is that, the 40% to business development, is that like a 20% increase on your BD time now? Or is
Yes.
that, so I think painting a picture of how your time is shifting from the current.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you've got the hiring of, your investment in new resources as you've listed them.
Yeah.
And then the fact that you're going to measure everything and monitor that from a performance point of view.
Yeah.
It is tricky because you don't it's a discipline not to get into the weeds.
Yeah.
But have enough in there.
Right.
That you're showing your board that you've really thought it through. So I'm not here to plug the book, but I would recommend you all purchase it on Amazon. There's 2 anchor case studies that go through all 5 gates. One of them is an EBITDA turnaround case study, and the other one is converting a licensing model from perpetual to recurring. And each of the gates builds. So literally everything that you're seeing here is blown out in quite some detail. So it's good from a example point of view. And I think what you just reviewed is consistent with the level of detail in the case studies, right? So I think you did a really good job putting specificity in without getting into tactical behavior. And that we'll get into that in the objectives in just a few minutes. So, okay.
Thank you for that feedback.
My pleasure. Karen.
And I'm wondering, I might not have been as specific as I need to be. So in terms of execution strategy, I'm indicating we will determine the appropriate contact within each partner organization to sign a partnership agreement. We will connect our development team to the partners team to manage integration work. We will gather lists of customers on each platform to use for campaign announcements. We'll bring a digital marketer on board to create marketing materials to promote these relationships and update the board monthly on progress.
Yeah, I think, there's not, how can I put it? There's not a right or a wrong answer here. It's about clarity in what you're defining, right? So, we go back to Payal's sharing. There's some of what she shared that you could move into objectives and blow it out further, but there's no harm having it in your execution strategy statement, because we are at execution, right? We're not up at strategic anymore. So there's no black or white or wrong answer. It's just clarity of what you're going to be doing. Where is it going to happen? When is it going to happen?
But should we define times? Like, this person's going to spend 60% of their time doing X. To that level.
You could, but you could leave that part as part of your objectives as well, right? I think that is a decision that you need to make for you and your business. So I am not at all trying to say that every business has to operate the same way. Like as Julia mentioned earlier about objectives versus goals, the point is to have consistent language. If you as a company use objectives or goals, just make sure that one means what it means. So I think what you don't want to get into in objectives, and we'll get to that in a second, objectives in the context of this framework are time bound and measurable, right? And so when you're making your execution strategy statement, you don't want to get to that level of granularity. This is more guiding your direction as guardrails, as we said, right? So I think it's fair for you to say this marketing resource who's going to be working on this, 60% of their time will be dedicated to this initiative is absolutely fine to be in your strategy statement, because you're saying strategically that's where 60% of your time needs to be.
Okay.
Okay. So Rana, I just want to just check in, and are you good to keep going? Any questions? Good. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Okay, so let's get down into the weeds even more. Payal, to your point, like this is getting trickier because we're getting more into things that are measurable, right? And it's important. I just want to pause here for a second. When you think back to the opportunity that you identified that you wanted to focus on today, a lot of the time what happens in business, any business, is you create your idea and then you march right to objectives. Look at the time you've spent thinking through what the goal would be, thinking through what your execution strategy is. If you just went from, I'm going to, just going to go back to Payal's, I'm going to increase my revenue from 600,000 to 1.2 million, and I'm going to hire a BDR that's going to do 50 cold calls a day. Like if I go just from this to this, you're missing a lot of important context in between. Okay. And that is what this workshop is about, and what the framework is about, is slowing you down to think about the things you're committing to delivering. If you go right from strategy to objectives, you're probably potentially, I shouldn't say probably, you're potentially putting undue burden on yourself because your objectives are not realistic, or maybe they're far too conservative. But if you do the work of gates 2 and 3, then your rationale for your timeline in gate 4 will be more thought out. Okay? So it really is just slow down, think about things, do the work, be pragmatic. And as I mentioned before, I'll just go to this slide for a second. I think it's here. This scoring model that's constant at the bottom is what is going to slow you down. I'll just pause here for a minute. So I'm going to ask a question. Karen and Payal and Rana, how big are your teams today?
Myself and my
Including-
co-founder. Two of us.
Two, okay,
We're 5, including the 2 co-founders.
okay.
So I'm a sole founder and we just hired 3 people.
Okay.
So we've got
So-
time, we have space to grow.
Okay. But you're all more than one. Okay? So this is applicable. Every single one of you're more than one. So every time you believe you're clear on each of these gates, you need to be going and getting feedback from your team as to their confidence in your gate 1 outputs, your gate 2, your gate 3. And anybody who isn't, that falls into the tweak or mitigate, and even the amplify, understand why are you so confident, why are you so open, why do you believe that we are actually resilient enough to do this, if they're, why don't you believe in this, why don't you have confidence? This whole framework encourages scratching beneath the surface. It encourages dialogue, it encourages understanding. Okay, it's important to have those conversations. So if you think about all the work you've done so far, and then taking it to your co-founder, taking it to your members of your leadership team, and saying, let's score this. And over a coffee, I did this with a client a month ago, and I did a Google survey, and it was amazing. They were aligned on 3/4 of the work we were doing. So the ones where we had to mitigate in 2 areas, we were able to dig and understand that, and then put turnaround plans in place for those things that scored poorly. Right. So this model is very simple on its surface, but what it does is it helps you check in with people. It helps you check in with yourself so that you're not leaving corners of your business undiscovered, right, or unchallenged. And that work, and I've said this many times, succeeding at change, it's not overly complex, it's just a lot of work, right? Having the discipline to challenge your own perception of what is right and what is wrong, having the courage to bring something to your co-founders or your leadership team or your mentors or your subordinates as well, and fostering that environment of openness, that you want to hear that they're not confident. You want to hear that the team is burnt out and has no capacity to do a certain thing. Because what's the point in being very aggressive towards a goal that your organization does not have either the skills or capacity or the time to execute? What is the point of pushing on something that's going to fail? So what this model encourages is the open dialogue so that you can either mitigate it or you can then progress with confidence. Everybody can progress with confidence. Okay, so I just wanted to highlight the scoring model because we haven't checked in on that since the beginning. But every single gate, every single step you make, you go back and you get feedback, and then you mitigate and you keep going. Great. Okay, so would anybody like a break, or shall we keep going? Keep going? Awesome. Great.
I think it's worth taking 5 minutes. No?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, 5 minutes. We'll see you
Get the
back.
body moving again. You guys, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay, see you in 5 minutes. Thanks. Bye.
Susan, do you mind if I ask a question? Oh, you're muted, but
I got it.
just while people are slowly coming back, because I was just curious because Karen had raised the question of, if we're narrowing it down to one of my staff members is spending 40% of their time on this and 60% of their time on that, whatever that might be, like in just a general scenario. And maybe you'll get to this as we move through the gates, but when you are making decisions like that, do you have a strategy in terms of division of time? Because you were talking about slowing down, evaluating, going backwards through the gates and making sure, where the score lies. Like, do you have advice or opinions on making those decisions in time division or in setting goals and strategy, or like setting your strategy or your overall objectives? Is maybe that's too, I don't know.
No, it's a great
It's just to
question.
make my mind move.
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like it depends on the resource, is what I would say, right? I am more outcome focused than I am the kind of manager that gets specific about time allocation. I think in some functions, you can reasonably say that person A can spend 40% of their time doing X and 50% of their time doing Y. But depending on the individual, if they're more proficient at one thing versus the other, then that time delineation might not be the best way to go about it. Because if they're really good at something, they might get the thing that you've allocated 40% of their time done faster or slower, depending on the individual. So I think you have to look at what's the outcome that you're striving for, and then who is the best person to go after that outcome, to like hold that outcome independently, and then determine if there's a percentage of time you should allocate based on it, right? So
Yeah.
I think the time allocation thing is good from a roles point of view, like a role definition. But
Yeah.
if you've got a strategic objective or goal, a strategic goal, which is long term, that's to bind that by a percentage of time in a role definition. It's tricky.
Yeah.
It's tricky. Yeah.
And then do you have like a recommendation on cadence in terms of evaluating the division of time and the overall outcomes? I mean, I guess you'll probably get there. Just what
Well,
my mind is going.
yeah, so it is part of objectives. So,
Okay.
minimum, you should be measuring performance on a quarterly basis. I don't believe in micromanagement at all. Like, it's really important that you're bringing the right people into your team. And so you give them the guardrails, which is your strategy, right? And you give them the outcomes that you're seeking, and you can break those down on a quarterly basis. So your big goal that you've set may not even happen in one fiscal year. Maybe it will. It might be longer term than that. How do you break that down into quarterly objectives, right? And if it's a new strategy, your Q1 may be an onboarding target, like just getting the new resources grounded in that thing you're trying to achieve. Q2 could be more tactical measurements of progress. Q3 ramping up that progress, whatever it may be. But so quarterly for sure. When I say I don't believe in micromanagement, you should have monthly check-ins just to assess performance and tweak. That's not micromanagement, that's a check-in. So yeah, monthly, quarterly, tied to yearly, which is typically tied to like a 3-year strategy. There's a cadence of how those things connect to your day-to-day operations. But always focus on outcome. Outcome is really important. What is the thing that you want to see happen at the end of the day? And then how can you peel it back to behavioral things that you want to see on a monthly basis, on a daily basis? What are the behavioral things that need to happen that will end up feeding progress, feeding results, feeding actually meeting your goal? Does that help?
Yes. I'm just
Okay.
making notes.
Absolutely. Okay. welcome back, everybody. So I'm going to go back up for just a second here. So we're up at objectives. We're getting into the weeds now, and it's pretty specific. So how will the change occur? This is where you're going to get more into, again, not micromanagement, not, what somebody does when they come in at 9 o'clock and what they need to do in the morning and the PM of every day. That's not what I'm talking about, but it is more specific in a time-bound sense of what you want to achieve month over month, quarter over quarter. So again, my high level example I'll get to in just a second, but an objective, it's specific measurable actions against a timeline that does not exceed the current fiscal year. Okay, so a goal, if we go back to gate 2, the goal is a big strategic thing that might take you 2 to 3 years to accomplish. Maybe it'll happen in 1 year, maybe it won't. Okay, so I'm just saying that because this is not about me providing a framework here that says you must do this in this way, and everything I'm telling you is exactly how you need to do it. That is not what this framework is about. It's about how you think about going after this opportunity that you've all put at the heart of this exercise today. How do you pragmatically go about working through the planning and the execution? So an objective is more tactical. And it typically will not exceed the current fiscal year unless you are starting this new opportunity capture halfway through your fiscal year. Then it's obviously going to carry over. So you can set macro objectives for the year and micro objectives for the quarter, which is what we were just talking about, Katie, right? Like, so what's your cadence of check-ins? So typically with it's just you and your founder, as your teams are expanding, you're going to have more regular meetings. So certainly monthly, you do your check-ins. Quarterly, you have really hard targets that you need to meet, in a perfect world, exceed. And if you're doing those things, then you're going to hit your goal, hopefully, at the end of your timeline. So monthly check-ins, quarterly objectives, that will result in you hitting your plan for the year. So as an example of these tactical objectives. So again, I'm being repetitive, but it's just so we can keep the narrative going. I'm a product company. I've got a new innovative product that I'm going to announce in 10 days to get people excited, start having sales conversations, build the pipeline up. I'm going to 2x my pipeline in 6 months. And I need to do that. Otherwise, we're going to stagnate. The competition is going to kill us. So I've said that my strategy is to create the SWAT team, and I'm going to dedicate their time. I'm going to create a production plan. I'm going to measure behavior. I'm going to check in if we're not doing things right, and I'm going to adjust. So now I'm at my goal, my objectives. So this is more tactical, and you can see time-bound items here. So I said I was going to create a SWAT team, and I said whatever they're working on needs to be transitioned. I'm committing to the business that I will have that transition done in 2 days. I'm holding myself to account to say that transition of my workforce and their focused will be done in 2 days. This is very simple. I mean, in the businesses we're dealing with, it's going to take longer than that, but I'm just giving it as an example. The production plan for this new innovative product that I want to release to market, we've been working on it for a long time. The design's already done, but the production plan, I'm committed to having that nailed in 5 days. Okay. I am going to present our production plan to our customer advisory board. Is everyone familiar with a CAB? Is that a new term? Okay, I'll just explain what that is. And it's not something you're going to deal with in the short term, but it's something you should be aware of and think about it. When you have customers that are really committed to your product, as you scale, typically companies will establish a customer advisory board, and it's really a trusted set of customers that you can talk to about how your product operates, market conditions, those types of things. It's really important that you do that as you grow, because you're able to then share, maybe not beta, but pre-release product and get feedback, when you're in the QA process. It's really, really important. It's a safe space. Customers love being on a cab. And as you grow, you can invite them to speak on panels, those types of things. So in this example, what I'm saying is that, great, we've produced a production plan. We're going to actually get our cab to take a look at that and provide any feedback. Maybe we can make it even better with their input. And we're going to do that within 10 days. And then we're going to share a post QA pre-release with the cab and get them to test it and play with it and provide now hands-on feedback for that product. And so on and so on and so on. I've got timeline TBD. So there's a few things here that I just want to point out in terms of objectives. They are specific in the outcome, right? Transitioning work, creating a production plan, presenting the production plan to the cab, presenting the pre-release product to the cab. That's very specific. And the second element is time. Okay, time is critical because without a deadline, without accountability to time, things just slip and slip and slip and slip. And, people just keep working. It's not that there's not an intent to work or do good work, but if there isn't a deadline, that's just human nature. Things typically don't happen on time. So that's very, very important. So time-bound milestones is critical. Any questions on this piece? Okay. So then the how is your descriptive of how you're going to go about that, right? The specific ways in which the business will implement the strategy. So even though this is where I was talking again about that transition between, by the way, Katie, thank you for putting the notes in the chat there on the cab. I appreciate that. The transition, right, between leadership and middle management as you're growing, that transition and getting the buy-in from the doers in the business. You as founders have final say on everything that you're doing, everything, right? But the people that are going to do the work, tactically do the work, are your managers and your frontline people, right? So if you include them in setting the objectives, are they reasonable? Like that, are they reasonable? Are the timelines reasonable? There's one approach which is you say it needs to be done in 5 days. Your team knows it can't be done in less than 2 weeks, but you've said it has to be done in 5 days. So what are they going to do? Are they going to say no? They're going to work hard and do their best, and they're probably going to fail, and then everybody's really unhappy. So if you include them in the conversation and they tell you it's 2 weeks and you ask why and you understand why, then you can accept that and adjust your plan. Okay, so this is why that combination of leadership, you as the expert and the founder, and input from your frontline and your managers is really, I think it's the secret sauce in transitioning from great ideas to actually realizing results. Okay, so as an example, while we lock down the production plan, we're going to, in parallel, engage the cab because we need them to commit to participating in this feedback loop. So there's a parallel activity. That's how we're going to create the production plan, but how are we going to, ensure that they're going to review the plan? We're going to work in parallel to engage them. We're going to set weekly targets across all functions related to developing this product. And we're going to present the production plan, not just for them in a meeting, but a collaborative session. We're going to have a working session with the collab in order to gain some additional perspectives on the priorities. So these are, again, very high level, but the combination of a structured plan and these regular check-ins, it's really going to allow us to avoid the risk of failure. Okay, so the task for you now is to set your objectives and think about the how. So I'll go back up, Payal, to the suggestion that's working really well and start with setting our objectives related to the opportunity that you've identified for capture. Okay, and again, 2 things, specificity and time. And keep in mind all of the work you've done on your execution strategy, your goal, and the amount of time it's going to take for you to secure the ask, right? So I'm just going to pause for a second here. You've had a great idea, Payal, you're going to go and hire new BDRs, right? And you're going to hire them and you're going to go and get out to market and build. But have you secured the funding yet? So that affects your timeline,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
part of your objectives may be, I'm going to write my business case for this funding and I'm going to give myself 45 days for that, for example. Okay. So I'm just being repetitive on the connection, why it matters to understand each element of this and how much time it's going to take and what are the material things that need to be done along this journey. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is a great point because I did have a question about time-bound milestones because it's a variable if the funding timelines are variable.
Right.
So that's why in the previous when I was putting the goals, I said post-funding, 12 months post-funding, but now I think we'll have to put in a date, which means we have to make assumptions of when the funding comes in. Is that right?
I think, but you should have indicators of your assumptions. So a random assumption of when the funds come in doesn't really mean anything, but based on the discussions you're having, right? And what the stage of progress is on securing the funding is going to inform your ability to forecast out when you think that funding is going to close, right?
Yeah.
So think through all of that. Those are all inputs to a reasonable timeline for you.
Right. So here, do we get into dates or duration?
That's up to you. It's
That's
to me,
where we can.
it's date. To me, it's more dates, right?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be like June 15th. I think in
Yeah.
date you can talk in terms of months, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it's big picture, you could even think in terms of quarters. Like if you think that it's more realistic for you to secure the funding for this by the end of Q2,
Yeah.
right? Then what other things for you, for example, maybe while you're working on closing funding by the end of Q2, in parallel, you're going to write your BDR job description. You're going to write the go-to-market strategy for those BDRs. What's your sales plan for those BDRs? So it's not, most of these things are not linear, right?
Yeah.
Most of these things should be operating in parallel,
Yeah.
but thinking around the time, I would say don't go any more granular than months, and potentially, depending how big it is, it might be quarterly.
Right. So objectives could be really detailed because then we are capturing all the activities.
All the activities that are not, so I'm going to go back here for a second to this slide. Let me just go back here. I don't think that you should, let's go with this one here. We don't deal with tactics being things that are on the ground. So what do I mean by that? If entering, we expect that our BDRs are going to create 5 new records in the CRM on a daily basis. I mean, I'm being kind of very, very simplistic. And why would you want to spend time crafting those types of like tactical metrics? I think you want to focus, as I was mentioning at the end of the break, Katie asked a good question around timeline. You want to focus on outcomes. So you should get as specific as you possibly can on outcomes, behavioral outcomes, progress outcomes, results outcomes. And beneath that, I think you really need to trust your people to do their job. And if you can't trust them to do their job, then I guess there's a little bit of a question of, are they a right person for the right fit for that role? The challenge with getting too detailed on tactics change as you learn more about your market and as you learn more about your customers and as you evolve. And at your stage of growth, you're evolving like rapidly, constantly evolving. So you don't want to waste a ton of time getting too granular on tactics. Focus on outcomes, and I would leave it at that level.
Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure. So let me get out of here, and I'm gonna leave it on this slide. And then if everyone can please let me know when you're good to go. I'm going to limit this one to 5 minutes, just in the interest of time. Our time flow has gone actually quite well, but we need to do catch up a little bit. Two minutes. If anyone's ready to share, please feel free. I'm going to let it run a little bit longer. I can see that you're all working, so we'll keep it going for a few more minutes. Thanks. Okay, 2 minutes. If everybody's done before that, please let me know. If not, we'll cut it off in 2 minutes. Okay, time's up. Who would like to share?
I can go if you want.
Great.
Okay, I kind of broke mine off into two pieces. I don't know if this is the right way. So basically objectives, defining our desired 3 partnerships we want to build and the associated costs with those partnerships a day. And then we need to secure funding for these partnerships and the digital marketing position by the end of Q2. And then onboard the digital marketer by the beginning of Q3. And then for each individual partnership, because we're aiming for 3, I have a series of, key objectives. So for each one, signing the partnership contract a day, book meetings with the development team over 3 days, build integrations and test over 3 weeks, develop marketing materials with the digital marketer and co-branding over 5 days, review with management team for approvals 3 days, and then build a campaign over 5 days.
Fantastic. That's great. The only thing, a couple of things I would say, that signing the contract with the partners, how big are your partners typically? Are they large organizations, Karen?
They're large, and usually there's a standard contract they have with ISV, with technology partners, and we usually.
So it's their agreement, and you guys would just generally pretty much be signing off on those without a lot of back and forth. Okay,
it's really just it's pretty straight.
Okay, that's great. So no, that's exactly right. They're time bound, they're specific, and you've hit a multitude of different functions. So it's great. Yeah. Okay. Payal?
I don't like mine.
If you don't want to share, that there's no pressure, but we can talk through it if you'd like. It's up to you.
I'll share. I just know that it's just so all over the place. I think I went into tactics, then I tried to come back up, and I went deeper. So it was a little bit of struggle. This one is particularly a little bit struggle, but I'll share with everything.
Right.
So completing due diligence by April 2024 to secure the funding, because then that becomes the benchmark of money coming in. Hiring via Indeed, on-campus recruiting, and LinkedIn, and training 3 BDRs and 1 digital marketing specialist by June 2024.
Okay.
Launching a targeted outreach program via cold calling and email by June 2024. Launching digital marketing online campaigns, planning and launching digital marketing campaigns and SEO initiatives by May 2024. And then I said continuously learning and refining the scripts and messaging on an ongoing basis.
I think those are good. My only concern is those are really tight timelines. I'm looking at the calendar and I'm thinking about you and your team and your bandwidth and your ability. Obviously, the due diligence, that's what that makes sense if you're in the flow of that already. But I think some of your hiring plans for June and kicking off the campaigns, I'm just thinking about how big your business is and how much time that takes. So think through the tactics below each of those buckets and think about what's really reasonable and actually doable versus not. And if there's a progressive path to achieving those, it just, I know it's only February, but against the resources that you have and what they're doing today and their capacity, are those realistic?
Yeah, I tried to. My basic premise was that some of the activities, like when I'm hiring, we can also start planning the SEO, for example. So I tried to, think about some parallel activities. But yeah, you're right. It is a little bit aggressive.
So I don't believe in, there's a sales term, I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but sandbagging. It's like the worst behavior ever, where you have like reps that don't tell you about a deal that's coming in until it's closed. So I don't believe in that. I'm not encouraging you to be not aggressive. I'm just saying, with the resources you have and the constraints, is that reasonable? Or, is there a June, July staggered timeline on these things? What maybe breaking them out a bit more might give you some more breathing room that you can actually succeed and feel really good about it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, let's keep going. So I have one, let's go back to Mentimeter for a second. This is our last one. I'm curious about your opinion on this, and I may have given you some hints already in my talk tracks, a little bit of a cheat. So what is your opinion on the order of importance in managing your team when it comes to meeting the objectives that you just set? Is it behavior? Is it progress? Or is it results? What's the order of importance of these three things?
Wouldn't results be the most important? Because you have
I would like you all to vote.
Oh, we're gonna vote. Is there a QR code?
Sure, yeah, it's if you go back, yes, let me go back again. Hold on. Thank you, Karen, for why is it not going back? Here we go.
I thought you wanted us to answer because there was no code.
No,
Okay.
no, thank you for managing me. I appreciate it.
It's okay.
Okay, everybody's got it?
It was the wrong QR code, I think.
No.
Nope, mine's okay. I think
Okay.
it's my phone. 1 second.
Let me do that again. I'll just leave it up here for a sec.
Yeah. 1 sec. Let's try this again. Sorry, my phone's not doing anything. I don't know what's wrong
Not
with it.
cooperating?
It's not
Okay.
cooperating on this one. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. Your vote is for results?
Yeah. I
Okay.
thought so.
So this is my opinion based on my experience, okay? And oh, it's still jumping around there a little bit. I think we've got everybody now.
Yeah.
For me, it's behavior,
Mm.
right? What are people doing every single day? What are they doing with their time? This is again not about micromanagement, but what are the behaviors that you need to see happening across your teams? If the people are doing the right things, then progress will occur and results will happen. And so, you can scream about results, but if you're not looking at the behavior of the teams that are contributing and you're not managing that, then the results will not happen. So just a bit of a check-in. Everything that I do is about business objectives and results and people. And it's a 50-50 weighting. So if we go back to the initial premise of all of this, 70% of businesses or change fails, which has a direct relationship to only 30% of startups surviving. A large portion of that is because people aren't doing the right things. Okay. And as leaders, it is our job to also be doing the right things to show the rest of our teams what the right behavior looks like on a day-to-day basis and being consistent with that behavior. And again, that's not micromanagement. It's about engagement in the job, being focused on making progress and being proud of look what I accomplished this month, look what I contributed this quarter, and all that consistency of contributing through behavior will show in the results. Great. Okay, so we have one more exercise, and go ahead. Go ahead,
Sorry.
Cal.
Just on that previous slide, quickly, I wanted to share, I don't know if it helps this group, is in terms of behavior, progress, and results, do you think it also matters in terms of roles? So I'll give you a real example that happened in our office. So we hired 2 people. One was for customer support, representative for customer support, and the other was a BDR. Now, in terms of, and they were both around the same timeline. So both of them, the intent to work hard was there, the intent to deliver was there, which was great. So, and both of them, of course, did not perform in their first month. There's a little bit of learning curve.
Sure.
So, but when I saw progress, in both, even though like from sales perspective, our churn started going up because the customer support person, even though there's guidance, there are mistakes that were happening. And on the sales side, the sales were not, the target, of course, were not being achieved because first month. So while I'm seeing the metrics failing, I'm seeing the intent, I'm seeing the hard work, I'm seeing progress. They're doing better each week.
Right.
But at the end of 3 months, when the probation period ended, the customer support person actually started delivering. The churn started going back to where it was. Tickets were handled very well. So this work that go from behavior to results. But on the sales front, I feel like I was a little bit delayed in taking a decision of whether to retain because the results never came in. So what happened was, yes, there were calls made, we made tweaks and there was progress, but the results really never came in. Sometimes it's just not the right fit.
Sure. Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
I think that's spot on. So as I've said a couple of times, this this framework and my thinking, it's not nothing is black and white in business.
Yeah.
And behavior is not just tactics. It's also if that person isn't recognizing, maybe they're making the calls, right? And they're doing the actions, right? Actions are not necessarily behaviors, right? If they're rote reading a script, but they're not listening to the client because they don't care, they're just dialing for dollars, that then there's nuance even within behavior. So yeah, 100%. It's not just about doing that. It does depend on role, but even within a very tactical role, like an inside BDR, somebody who's just going through the motions and they still aren't producing the results, that there's a reason for that. And maybe they're not truly engaged in the selling motion. They're not truly connecting. They can't connect with the client, for example. Right? So there's nuance in everything, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay,
you.
great question. Okay, we have 8 minutes left, and what I want to do is not just kind of talk at you for the full 8 minutes. I want to leave a few minutes just for ending Q&A. The last section that I wanted to go through is about communications and sustainability plans, and I'm going to just jump ahead. Sustainability, we're not going to do an exercise on this at all, but the message here is really important. Whatever the opportunity is that you're going to capture, once you've captured it and you're celebrating, what are you going to do to sustain that opportunity? What are you going to do to not have that thing that you've worked so hard to achieve not continue to be healthy and continue to grow? So you've got to think about the checks and balances you put in place after you achieve, Karen, your partnerships, right? And your integrations. What do you need to ensure that great, you've got a new integration, that partner that you've connected to, what new features do they need? How are we staying in that constant conversation of product feature fit and benefit for you, Payal? Like, what is the market looking for next? And your customers, are there new features? Are there maybe your customers success strategy needs to have different ways of engaging. So when you achieve that goal that you've all targeted today, how do you ensure it doesn't fall back to just a project? Nothing you do that we've talked about today should be thought of as a project. It's something that you want to achieve and then nurture and have it sustain and grow. So I'll just leave that there, and I'll share the step with you when the session runs up today. In terms of communication, it's gate 5 in the methodology, but it applies from gate 1 to gate 5, and it's really around who gets communicated, what information gets communicated to which audience. Okay, who type 1, and you're kind of small for this because it really is about you. And your founders, your co-founders. But as you grow and you're making strategic decisions, you have to be clear about what information you're communicating to what level of the organization. And so who type 1 are the people that should know everything. And it might be about a change you're making in the business in order to drive shareholder returns. Well, guess what? Frontline workers don't need to know that. It doesn't really impact them. So what information is for the entire company, and what information is for external resources as well? So there's just thinking through your opportunity that you wanted to capture and all the work you've done so far. There's a need to then map what that strategy is, how you would communicate it to the organization, right? So we're not going to go through that exercise right now in the interest of time, but I do want you to be thinking about everything you've documented today. Who needs to be communicated what related to this goal? And in your case, it might be everybody, but I think you need to think through that mapping and the message that goes to each one. Okay. So we have 5 minutes left. I just wanted to throw the floor open and get your feedback on the session today and any questions in terms of the process. My closing statement would be that I hope that the exercises, you've all been working hard in the breakout groups, which is great, has given you some food for thought in terms of some of the details behind how you're going to go about capturing these opportunities.
Yeah, for me, I think just looking at and I've always thought of goals and objectives probably in the same light. So separating those is interesting, and I get it, which is good. And just being able to translate those high level goals to tactical. I need to do that more, I think. And, we talk a lot about strategy and what we need to do, but we don't really put a lot of focus, which is probably bad, on the execution piece and the details around the execution. It's more, we always talk more high level. I don't know if everyone else is like that. Like, we need to do X, Y, and Z, but not get down to the weeds going, how are we actually going to get this done? What's the timeline? It's more high level, which is probably not good. We have to get back in the weeds a little bit more to be more tactical, but we haven't done that to date. So that was a good process around that.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I was going to say that this is exactly what Julia wanted me to do. for our ghost board. So that's why I've been trying to stay really quiet so I can absorb everything. We did a bit of a strategy where we got really granular, and then we got very like generalized, and now we're just kind of trying to put everything in an actual cohesive, realistic timeline of what each person that we've just recently hired is going to be doing in order to like achieve all the goals or objectives we have.
Great.
I think I was thinking that we do talk about like our goal and objectives, and we could get really granular. But I think I like this exercise because when investors are sometimes asking, so how are you going to use the funds? Well, I have a 3-page document to tell you how, but I only have 30 seconds right now to answer. So moving between high level, then going deeper, if I can document in this structure or using this framework, I think that will help me navigate better answering those questions.
That's terrific. A rule for me is you should be able to boil up everything we've talked about today into a deck that is less than 15 slides.
Whoa.
It's a discipline. I'm not begging you, but I'm strongly encouraging all of you to develop that skill. And the reason I say develop the skill, and I said before, this is not hard. This is just work, right? And if anything, I think what you've experienced today is the amount you do need to put more time into thinking through these things. And then when you break it down this simply, right? Because it's challenging your thinking, but the framework itself it's simple. Those salient points that you capture, they then become the major talking points in an executive presentation, right? But you're doing the thought and the work, and at the bottom here again, checking in. So when you do go to present to your next board meeting, you actually can present and you can say, I've presented all of this and really dug into it with my co-founder and my team, and we're aligned. We are aligned. So this has been great. We've had a much smaller team and group that we were expecting to have today, but it allowed us to have this dialogue. It's been great. And so thank you. I really love seeing the heads down and seeing the work happen. Other than the first gate, everybody, I had to kind of stop you from working, which tells me that you got value out of it, that it was really challenging your thinking. And that was really the whole point of today. So really, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Susan. It was great.
My pleasure.
Thank you,
Katie and
Susan.
Julia, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
that was
you.
awesome. Julie, I don't know if you want to say a couple things while everybody gets ready for the photo that I'm going to
Oh,
take.
God.
Yeah. I do. One of the things I wanted to say, and I'm just gonna look more beautiful for a second, is really, this is part of growing Chipworks. When we started really starting at the top and breaking down the problem and setting, I'm going to use Susan's word, the strategic goals, we could then start to get each of the individuals who were accountable to break that out again and establish, what the issues were, how to resolve them, and then go through the process of the work breakdown structure to figure out what next and how do we get results. And more than anything else, in the end, we had them report on those results every month. And so we'd rotate through them. So it wasn't everybody, but they were reporting to that company. And it really helped with the accountability standpoint and the belief of the employees that this is something we were serious about as well. Made a real difference. So as you grow, this will become more and more critical.
And you can pass the same model down as you grow to your managers and your directors as you grow. So everybody is operating at the same level of expectation, and you create a culture, as Julia said, of accountability. It works wonders. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Okay, are we ready for the photo, everybody?
Yeah.
So I'm going to see if I can multitask. Probably not. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to take 2.
Okay.
So bear with me, folks.
Love the Joni shirt. You got to lift your boobs a bit.
I know,
more.
I'm trying. I'm trying. It's like my head. Did you see me trying to move my sweater? I'm like, I can't get it. I can't get it all. Joni is one of our the companies that graduated from the program, and I have a sweater. So, and I will rep, as all of you know. I mentioned this to Karen, but if you send me gear, I will rep.
Send her the shirt
every day. I'll do it. I'll do it. Obviously. Okay, just one sec. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, smile. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll make
Okay,
those
awesome.
available to everybody.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That
Thank you,
was
everyone.
great. Thank you. And oh, just a couple of reminders for the folks. We have next week, we have our lunch and learn with Janet Bannister, who's an experienced investor. Come ready with questions. So we're going to make it interactive. Julia will be managing the conversation, like she'll be guiding the conversation. But the more questions, the better.
Well, send me
Julia,
questions in advance.
There you go.
My ask, really. I'd
Okay.
love to hear what you want to hear, and I'll start the conversation and then get everybody engaged. Janet's really easy to talk to. She's fantastic. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and we'll make all of Susan's resources available post workshop. And just thank you all so much, and take advantage of the structure you've been given today. Okay,
Thank you
we'll
so
chat
much,
soon.
Suzanne.
Okay, thank you. Have a great
Bye.
day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.